Before we get to episode 129 in my interview with Pramit of Louie Voice Control, I'd like to ask for your support of the I Can't See You podcast. Go to ican'tseeyou.com/Amazon. That will take you to Amazon's homepage. When you make a purchase, I earn a small commission, anywhere from 3 to 8%. I really do appreciate it, especially with Prime Day coming up. Remember, ican'tseeyou.com/Amazon. Thank you so much. I appreciate your support.
From Studio B in Swarthmore, this is the I Can't See You podcast with David. It's like blind people for dummies.
Hello there, and welcome to episode 129 of the I Can't See You podcast. My name is David, at David Benj on all the socials. I really appreciate you joining me for today's episode. And I do have a few things to talk about, and I do have a guest today. And we'll get to Pramit from Louie Voice Control in a few minutes. But I wanted to talk about a couple of things first. It's episode 129, which is, I know I stopped naming them. But our address in media was 129 Millbrook Lane, and it just so happens that we moved away from there 5 years ago on June 1st. It was 5 years that we had moved, and we had downsized, as most of you know, into a condominium, which we thought was going to be the last place that we lived in this area because the kids were out of school, or just about out of school. I guess in Jane's case, she still had 1 year left. And we knew that she was going to be living in New York when she graduated because that's where all the beauty PR jobs are. And, then the pandemic came and we needed some more space and now we have it. But the good thing is, so 129 is this episode. I don't know what we'll call this. This is where the house where the kids grew up. And, while I don't miss the 4,000 square feet that we had to take care of and clean, it'd be nice to have a little bit more backyard. We had a great backyard there, and our dog Zamboni at the time loved to run around the backyard. He had a lot of room. We had an invisible fence back there, so it was wide open. He could run around, and you could tell when the battery was dying because he'd wander a little bit further. Now with Ziggy has a decent backyard where we are here, but from the street to the end of our back property line is probably not as wide as our house was over in media. And I want to say it's, maybe 100 feet. And our backyard from side property line to the other side property line was somewhere around 120 feet. So it was just a nice sized property. We backed up to common area, so it was wide open. It was really nice. And that part I miss a little bit. Again, it costs quite a bit to keep that stuff up as well, not just the inside. And ironic that I'm talking about that now because we're talking about, when we moved, our HVAC system there was the original one that we had when we built the house. So 23 years it lasted. We moved into this house after the condo, and we had a problem right off the bat with our air conditioner when we started it a couple of weeks ago. And I just got a price quote for a new one. And right now we're going to hold off and keep our fingers crossed that it stays running and we keep cool. But I did mention Jane. I can announce now that Jane has landed a new job staying within beauty PR. She will be moving from one agency to another. I'm not going to announce the names at this point because she may kill me if I do. But she starts there on the 21st. Now, one thing that's interesting, she starts there on the 21st and is actually going to be moving back to New York City because they want her in the office 2 days a week. So she'll finally get to live in her new apartment, the one that she moved to from the one that she never lived in, which is the one she moved to, which was a flex, a one-bedroom flex. And you can go back and take a listen to some of those other episodes because I do talk extensively about that in previous episodes. But this will be her third apartment in New York City, and again, the second one that she's lived in. And she's actually going up this coming weekend to get some things squared away at her current position as that company that she works for now was basically sunsetting all their beauty clients. A lot of the beauty team members had left. One of them went on maternity leave. And, so basically the end of everything, it's all on Jane. There's no one else on some of the accounts that she's on, and it's just been brutal because she's got to do all the reporting, do all the pitching, do everything, and it's been quite a lot for her. But she has come through, and she's looking forward to moving on. She's actually moving to a place, the company that she's going to be working for is where she interned. Her last internship was with this company, and she's really excited to be going back there, and actually is taking a pay cut to go back there. So that's how much she wanted to go. Lastly, with the personal stuff, is today, the 10th of June, is Liz and my 31st anniversary. So happy anniversary to Liz. I appreciate you allowing me to wake up every morning. She doesn't listen, so she won't know. I mean, she knows that she lets me wake up every morning. But it's hard to believe, thinking back over all the years and all the different anniversaries that we celebrated. And I was thinking about one, and it was our 10th anniversary that, for whatever reason, we went down to the Jersey Shore, and I think we went to Atlantic City, but we took the kids with us. And, I remember catching a little bit of flack from, I think it was Liz's mother, like, why would you take the kids on your anniversary? And I thought it would be a nice family day out. It was, I guess it fell on a weekend, or I was able to have some time, whatever. But I think about that day, and it's hard to believe that in itself was 21 years ago. So happy anniversary to Liz, and I love you still like I did at the beginning, and I hope you feel the same. Again, you allow me to wake up, so there's something there. And one more thing, I had mentioned a couple of weeks ago about some trouble I was having with my eye, and it turns out that I do have upcoming in a couple of weeks an appointment with one of my specialists. It's the retina specialist. His name is Dr. Garg. He occasionally listens. So Dr. Garg, if you're listening, I'll see you in July. And but this week, and my eye seemed a little better after I had complained about it. After a day or two of releasing that podcast where I was complaining about my vision, it seemed to get a little better. And then the other morning I woke up and I could tell there was an issue. And, my eye felt really gritty and crusty, and I thought, okay, what is this? I had Jane take a look at it, and she said, it looks like there's something white in there. And so I took a picture of it. I took a selfie of it and sent it to Liz. I said, Liz, what do you see in here? I said, it doesn't feel right. She said, there's some milky white, goop in there. So I went to the computer, and this is kind of funny. I went to the computer and I typed in something like milky white goop in eye. And it was one of two problems. It was either something related to my menstrual cycle, or there was some other fluid in my oil of my car motor. So I knew that it didn't have to do with my menstrual cycle because I don't have that equipment. And, to be honest, I don't have a car either. And our car is new, so I knew it wasn't that. So after doing some more research, and I think I changed the word goop to maybe substance, I then found out it could be something serious. But when I was reading all the things that it could have been, one of the things, it sounded more right than any of the others, which was either allergies or dust. And I've been sneezing, a lot over the last week and congested. So I kind of think that's it. And it lasted about a day, and, it's feeling better today. So again, if it feels, Liz and I texted back and forth, and I said, should I go to one of the guys and have them look at it? I hate to do it if it's not, urgent, because again, I don't want to jump in the Uber, and then I have to worry about before I jump in the Uber, I have to get the referral from my doctor, which is usually not an easy thing. And, I'd rather hold off. And again, same thing, I'd rather hold off until, Liz is done school next week. I'd rather hold off when Liz could go and help me navigate through, the paperwork and things like that. So when I read all the things that it could be and came upon that one where it said, it could be allergies or dust. And there's a lot of dust in the house between the dust and the dog hair, and I'm coated in dog hair almost from the beginning of the day. until I go to bed because, I play around with Ziggy jumping on me and, I sit down on the floor and he sits on me and so forth and so on. So I'm pretty confident that was it. Again, I'm not a doctor and nor do I play one on TV like my friend Ken does. But I kind of think that's it. And, there's not a lot of vision that I have to deal with. So, some people might be a little nervous about taking that chance of waiting. 9 times out of 10 in the past over my 55, 56 plus years, when I went to the eye doctor because of an issue, there usually wasn't a big problem. Now, there were times when I went and I had some serious eye pain and I knew there was something going on there. But 9 times out of 10, when it was something like my vision was a little weird and I went, usually, I don't see anything in there, the doctor would say. So I'm fairly confident that, this is it. Look, I might wake up tomorrow and not see, and, then I'll say, oops, I should have gone. Hopefully that's not the case. What do you say we move on and bring on our guest? His name is Pramit. He's developed an app called Louie Voice Control. Pramit, I really appreciate you coming on the podcast today.
Thanks, David. It's wonderful to be here.
Give us a little background of yourself, your education, and what you do now.
All right. So the days when I was studying, I actually had a normal vision.
Okay.
So I'm actually a computer engineer. Then I did my MBA, and then I've worked with global companies like Unilever, Motorola, Quest Diagnostics, mostly in the area of marketing and managing businesses. And in between, there was an episode of almost 21 years back when a drug was given to me for my joint pains. The drug worked in the sense that my joint pains disappeared, but it created a reaction on the retina. And my vision actually dropped quite a bit at that time. Over the years, it kept dropping. And then what I'm doing now is basically I'm building an app called Louie Voice Control, which allows visually impaired people like me to control popular apps as well as phone features, all with just voice commands.
Okay. You said a couple of things, and I do want to get into Louie Voice Control in a couple of minutes, but you said a couple of things that made me panic a little bit because, while I am also visually impaired, legally blind, I also have psoriatic arthritis. So, I do have some joint issues. As I told a friend the other day, that's almost more important to me now to fix than my vision, which I know can't be fixed. But, as I told my friend, I can sit and listen to music and my lack of vision doesn't play a role in that. But, when I'm sitting and listening to music and enjoying that, the fact that my hands and my knees and my feet and everything hurt, that's something that, I don't like to live with. So that actually is more important to me now. So the fact that, I never thought about taking some sort of medication for example, let's say for the psoriatic arthritis or my joints that could then affect my vision. And I'm sure like me, your vision fluctuates daily depending on a whole bunch of different things. Do you find that?
Right.
So that kind of concerns me, and that's very interesting that happened. So when you were in school and so you were done school and in the workforce when things went south with your vision, is that right?
Yeah, that time I had finished my education, done my MBA. I was working with Unilever at that time.
Okay.
When almost literally overnight, I realized that my vision has dropped quite a bit.
Okay. And as far as now, do you still have some sight, and can you do anything with that sight? Is it very useful, or?
Yeah, see, you got to make it useful. Let me put it this way. Right. See, every drop of it, you got to find ways to help yourself. So basically, I cannot read anything at all.
Okay.
I'm good when, right now there is bright sunlight here. So, so it does help my vision, the more the light.
Okay.
I have what I would call a very, very gross vision. So I could, so even if somebody is 1 foot away, I cannot recognize them.
Okay.
But I know somebody is there.
Okay.
I know there is there's a chair or something is there. So I
Okay.
can, therefore I've trained myself to sort of move around independently, do things as much as I can, use a lot of technology, right? Which by the way may not require sight.
Right.
So and and hopefully do something constructive. I used to be highly, I would say, selfish, trying to go up the corporate ladder in during the days where in my early days, very transactional. What is the benefit for me? Now I'm trying to move my life to say, okay, how can I serve others? How
Right.
can I be a useful contributor to the society?
Right. Okay. Yeah. No. I agree uh, with the way you just talk about your vision. Any vision that you have, whether it's terrible or mediocre, whatever, it's still something. You could still do something with it. And there's some folks, actually, even in, again, getting back to my NFB stuff, some folks in our local chapter that says, oh, but you shouldn't be using your vision to learn to do this or learn to do that. I view vision as just one tool that you can use if it helps get you from point A to point B some way. Again, not that you're going to rely on it. I certainly couldn't walk out of my house and go to the train station without the use of my cane. I can use my vision, though, to help me get there, along with the use of my cane, and with other things, like you say, with with different apps and so forth. So I think that's I like the way that you put that, that you use what you have, and that helps you get the result that you want in the end.
But at the same time, David, I'll also tell you that 9 years back, so my this reaction of the drug happened 21 years back. My
Okay.
vision kept dropping. About 9 years back is when it really hit me, because that time I realized everything suddenly, my vision dropped drastically, and
Okay.
everything got wavy, foggy. I was not getting any correction. I couldn't read a thing. And that time I just didn't know how to deal with it. And if you ask me at that time, like, now that I'm a wiser now, when I try and diagnose, and I think the problem was I was living in the past. So I was sort of not accepting my new vision. And I was living in the past and thinking of, oh, will I be able to do the similar job, what I was doing 5 years back, PowerPoints, Excel sheets, how senior level jobs work,
Right.
and that was creating a lot of fear in my mind. And what I was not doing, which is what we are discussing now, is that, so you have a choice. You can either cry and, try and live in the past and cry about, what you lost, or you have an option of like they say, if life serves you a lemon, you can make a lemonade out of it.
Right.
so
Right.
so I think that's the that's something I didn't do then. And with the result, I was sitting at home for almost 2.5 years doing nothing,
Okay.
just being dependent on others. But
Right.
fortunately got out of that phase.
Right. And that's, it's funny that you mentioned that. I've been visually impaired my entire life. And, when I was a kid and I would go to the doctor, and my eye doctor was a good friend of our family. And I would say to him, hey, is there anything new? Can you fix congenital glaucoma yet? Oh, no, we're just trying to keep what vision you have.
Right.
And year after year, I kept asking that. And I always had a dream that, I'd be able to play baseball. Something would happen where it would get fixed and I'd be able to play baseball and do all that sort of stuff. And even as things kept getting worse, I kept saying, oh, I can't do this and I can't do that. And finally, at one point, I just had to say, look, I got to deal with it and, move on. And at the time we lived in a house that was far from public transport to go into. We live out in the suburbs of Philadelphia. So it wasn't easy for me to get to. It was a couple miles to mass transit to get into town. And now it's about a mile, so it's an easy walk. I shouldn't say an easy walk. It's a walk with a little bit of wonky sidewalk here and there. So but now I'm happy to do that. And I now that at least here restrictions with COVID are lifting, I was thinking the other day, I'm like, oh, well, now I can start doing those things again, walk to the train station, get on the train, go into Philadelphia and do things there, or go and visit my daughter once she's back in New York City. And stuff like that. So, it started to dawn on me, wow, this is going to be great. And things are opening up, and now I can do all those things again, because, everybody knows, like you say, you sat in the house and did nothing. Even when I was working, prior to losing more vision,
Right.
I was still working from home. So I would I would still spend the day, either by myself, or at the time we had a dog, years ago. So, it was me and him at home. And, for a couple of years, I had a business partner who would come over and, he and I would work, and it was great to have somebody else there in the house, some other human to talk to, because the dog wouldn't talk back to me. You know what I mean? So,
Right.
yeah, it's just, you just have to deal with it. So how long, moving forward back to Louie voice, how long did it take you to develop that, and what was the inspiration to actually do it? Were you using another app that just didn't work, or you had trouble with it? What was the inspiration? What was the catalyst to get that going?
Okay. So, the catalyst, I'll tell you two stories. Both were extremely accidental.
Okay.
So I got out of this, what I call this lost phase of doing nothing. Started doing some consulting work and actually found a niche for myself. So I was actually, getting some work, and I was quite happy because I was doing it at my own terms, where I could decide when I want to work or not. And I went to meet a managing director of Sequoia Capital. Right, you would know that they are amongst the world's top venture capital companies, and they're pretty big in India.
Okay.
And this gentleman heard my story. He heard about the apps which I use and what's good, what's not. And all of a sudden, my agenda was to get consulting assignment from him because they invest in so many companies. So that was the single-minded agenda I had. And in the midst of it, he says, "You know what? I'm not going to help you get any consulting assignments." So it's like, I say, "Oh boy." He said, "But I want you to build apps for visually impaired people like yourself. I'm going to, at a personal level, help you do that." And that was out of the blue. I had not thought about it. So anyway, I was at that time very rigid in my mind. I said, no, consulting. And, he said, "Okay, think about it. Come back." So a couple of months, I gave it a thought, and more, this whole thing kept becoming stronger. And I think what I realized is that very rarely in your life, you get these chances where you can leverage your own disability and build something that could possibly be helpful for others as well. And I had at that time also just read an article about a study done in Australia, where almost 97% of the old people who were on deathbed, uh, they were basically not happy with the way they lived their life because they never did what they really wanted to do. And here I felt that, look, I cannot let this opportunity go. So I got to take the risk of stopping my consulting assignment, but get into this. So that's how I decided to go into building an app for visually impaired.
Okay.
But
Okay,
then, David, it's one thing to sort of be an expert and say, "Oh, this is not good, that's not good, this can improve," on the existing apps.
right.
It's another thing to ask yourself, okay, what is good? Define.
Right.
And that's in so that's when a second accidental event happened, which gave me the idea. I had gone to meet a friend again. I mean, just generally. And on the way back, he took my smartphone and he said, "Why don't I book Uber for you?" He was just being helpful. I said, "Okay, go ahead." And he asked me my destination, put it into Uber. Uber gave a few options. I selected one. Similarly for the ride, the fare, he told me, and I selected one. And then he, reconfirmed everything, did the booking, called the driver, messaged the driver for me, and so on. So on the way back in Uber, I just felt, there was something in that experience which I absolutely love. Now, as a visually impaired, I want to be independent. I want to be in control. But at the same time, this was extremely convenient. So that's when the thought struck, this was like a eureka moment. And I said, what if I can build a virtual friend right there on the phone screen, which will do exactly what my human friend was doing? It will engage in a two-way voice conversation with me. It will take my voice commands. It will do each and everything within that app, just like a sighted person can. And it will understand my special needs, the fact that I cannot see the screen. So this is really what the whole Louie voice control concept is, that you just give voice commands and you can control. Louie will allow you to control popular apps, phone features, like I said, with just voice commands.
Right. And that's, to me, using your voice now, it's awesome. And I've told this story many times on this podcast. We used to have in our bathroom, bathroom where we showered, we used to have a clock radio because I like to listen to the radio while I was showering.
Right.
But of course I couldn't see any of the buttons, and I knew where the button was to turn the radio off and on, but sometimes I'd reach and I hit the wrong button. So, the alarm would go off at a certain time. So a few years ago, we finally got a Amazon Echo, and I walked into the
Yes.
bathroom and I would say, "Hey, lady, play this radio station or play this album from Spotify or whatever." Or what time is it? And it was a clock radio, but I couldn't see the clock. And so to be able to walk in there and do that, and of course, there's always going to be like, I don't know what you're saying, or I don't understand, or it does
Correct.
that for some things, but for the most part, it is just so awesome to be able to just speak. Now, of course, when you're brushing your teeth and you want to change the radio station or whatever, that makes it difficult. But you can still do it
Yeah.
for the most part, um, and it's just amazing to do. So how long ago did you develop the app? Is it fairly recent? Is it within the last year or two, or how long did it take you? When did you actually launch it?
Okay. So the journey so far has been 4 years long, right? We
Okay.
formally started the company only about 3 years back. And just to
Okay.
tell you, so 4 years back when I decided on this, now I started talking to, and I took Sequoia's help and got connected with a lot of technology experts as well as accessibility experts. And let me tell you, everybody said, just one message I got: don't waste your time, don't waste your life, you will not be able to build anything like this. So but somewhere I just wanted to make sure that I put in all the effort that I can. So I was lucky, a couple of companies helped us build early prototypes.
Okay.
And then, like I said, we formally started the company. The project was tough all along, and that's why it has taken time. Because if you see Siri, for example, I mean, the project started in mid 90s. It's
Okay.
only in 2010 that Apple took it over.
Okay.
So these things can take time. And first 5 months, we got some initial funding. First 5 months, not a single line of code written, because we were still trying to achieve certain milestones.
Okay.
But the journey has been one of the typical startup ups and downs. But we have come along a long way. Now there are a whole lot of apps that can be voice enabled, and user can use it with voice commands. We are also, right now it's in Android. We are also working, we just started work on iPhone also. So
Okay.
we'll have Louie for iPhone definitely out by early next year, maybe
Okay.
possibly before that. And we are getting into multiple languages. And then there are capabilities like image recognition that's built in. It can work offline, it can read any kind of documents, including scanned PDF documents. And like I said, it's built for a person who cannot see the screen. So there is still, of course, a long way to go, lot of improvements to be made. But because I happen to be the biggest user and the critic also of the app, but I think we have made good progress. And we currently have about users in about 90 countries across the world.
Wow. Okay. And that actually, when you were if you had any kind of plans for an iOS version, that was one of my questions. So that's good to know. One of the things that I think is kind of funny, a lot of things get developed for a specific customer or client and then end up ballooning into where, hey, I want that too. One thing that comes to mind, at least in this country, the cable companies have developed the voice control for the remote for the cable system, and
Right.
same thing. Like I was saying about the clock radio and now the Alexa, it is. I can't see I can't see the buttons on the remote control. So when we moved about 8 months or 9 months ago, they upgraded our equipment because they put the new equipment in here when we moved, and to sit down and just hit a button and say, DVR or channel 532 or whatever,
Right.
is just so convenient and so easy. But everybody uses it now. My kids sit there
Absolutely.
and use it. It wasn't made for initially. It was made for blind and visually impaired folks. But now like I said, I know my friends have it. Their kids use it, and everybody and so I envision just like same thing, just like with the using the Google Assistant or the Alexa. Folks are going to folks who are sighted are gonna use it as well because it's just more convenient. I was at dinner the other night and my one friend was saying, yeah, I sometimes have trouble reading the screen. And I said, look, you can use either voiceover or,
Right.
stuff like that. Or, and our cars read the text now because who wants to read a text while you're driving and, cause an accident. So, it's great that it's made and with the visually impaired and blind in mind. But I'm telling you, down the road, I know other people are going to use it because they're just going to find it so convenient, and hopefully that is that can only be good news for you and
Absolutely.
the app, and so currently it's available only for Android, and what's the cost of the app?
No, it's absolutely free right now.
Okay.
And so just to tell you, I think on the last point that you made, so you're absolutely right that using voice to control things can be very, very addictive. And so keeping that in mind, what we have done is, so we recognize that, most visually impaired people would probably be using a screen reader. But there are some who don't, whose vision is still good. So Louis is made in a way that it works. So you don't have to switch off your screen reader. So
Okay.
it's not that you have to switch off your talkback or voiceover if you have to use Louis. So it sort of adjusts itself, and it will work with a screen reader, without a screen reader. It works
Okay.
under both circumstances. And yeah, sorry. So your question was.
I I asked about we were talking about just generally folks using it, and
Yes.
what the cost
Cost
is.
comes, yeah. Yeah, that's a good question. So one of the things we are trying to do right now, because it's a social venture. Now what I'm very clear on is that we don't want to build a business where, let's say, the pricing is high, only 1 or 2% of the community can afford it, and while that may make us sustainable and profitable, but then it doesn't help us achieve anything. I mean, what really is the whole point? And like I said, it's already being used across 90 countries. So there are two approaches we are taking to keep it affordable. So one is, we are already, building some what we call a B2B business, where we are reaching out to large companies. So currently we are talking to an health insurance company, a very large one in US, a
Okay.
big diagnostics company again in US, one social media company here in India. And basically we are offering to voice enable their app on the Louis platform in exchange for, of course, some fee. So
Okay.
the whole thought is that if we can get good amount of license fees and development fees from these large companies which have consumer facing apps, then that will give us sustainability, and maybe we can keep the app even free. Even if
Okay.
we can't, the whole idea is that we'll keep it highly affordable.
Okay.
We'll have a different price across every country, like,
Okay.
because Africa, I think, will need a very different kind of pricing, or India, than, let's say, a US or a Canada,
Okay.
right? And within those countries also, we are not going to benchmark it with the current prices, but it's going to be I mean, this is sure it's going to be highly affordable, because, David, often what happens, we use the word accessibility, and it's often used in the context of, okay, can I use it with a screen reader, will it tell me? But one part of accessibility is also affordability. Can everybody afford it? Do I have access to it? So I think that's what really we want to achieve.
Right. And and that was going to, again, you're answering my questions before I even ask them, which is great. There's so many apps that are available that are free, and I know how some of them, some of them are games and they have in-app purchases and things like that. And that was going to be my question. How can you and I think that's a great model to, to get the, to doing what you're doing, going after, companies that can do it and would like to do it, and make it easier for everyone to use. So it basically happens for the folks who are the end users of your product to be able to use it. And moving forward, do you have any plans for any other types of apps, or are you just concentrating on Louis Voice for now?
No, so I think single-mindedly working on it. But what we are trying to do is, so just to tell you the apps that we support today, and there is a large variety. So we do Uber, YouTube, and Uber, the experience is the same, like the story that I said. So Uber, YouTube, WhatsApp, Google Search, we're just introduced. We're just about to bring in email,
Okay.
as well as Facebook Messenger, and one can make send text messages, phone calls, phone settings, and all of that.
Okay.
And now we are getting into things like, for example, we already have a feature called Where Am I, but we are trying to now link it up with navigation, so complete navigation through voice. Then of course, Facebook having the ability to order food, so a food ordering app,
Okay.
possibly an e-commerce app, a travel app. So basically, the idea being that various things that we require in our life, and and the most popular ones, even Spotify music, whatever. So
Right. Okay.
so the idea is to voice enable all of it so that it becomes sort of an integral part of a person's life, and build, in a technical sense, build Louis more like a platform. So like I said, where companies can come in and voice enable their app on their own, or we can do it for them.
Okay.
Right? And hopefully, once we have developed it to a point, and like you were mentioning, we can even reach out to sighted segments. So it could be elderly people, it could be motor disabled. I can see a lot of countries where even less educated people, illiterate people, because there would be people who cannot read the screen, what's there on the screen. They're sighted, but they are illiterate. But they can do a voice conversation with the app in their local language, because now we are actually have the ability to do. We are just working on Spanish and Hindi now,
Okay.
and we'll have something like 20, most important global languages all covered.
Okay.
So it could, reach out to multiple segments. So those are the kind of, let's say, dreams, or the way we want to go forward on Louis.
Okay. As you're speaking, I kind of get the idea of it. It's not, other apps that you need to develop. It's just more robust features going into, like you say, e-commerce and travel and whatnot. It's, I don't know how many products Spotify has, but I'm guessing it's not many. They concentrate on, on audio programming, basically. And am I right? Is that so? Basically, Louie is it, and it's just making that more robust.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's just, what I believe strongly is just do one thing and hopefully do it well.
Right.
Because
Yeah,
it's sometimes easy to sort of get, because a lot of people keep reaching out even now. I mean, yesterday there was somebody reaching out saying, can we do this app together? And I said, look, I just want to, focus on one thing.
Right.
And
Okay.
hopefully, do it well.
Right, and that's doing a couple of things that I've done over the course of my life. Marketing sites and whatnot. Just concentrate on one site and one thing, and then you could move on once you have that all down. And I agree with that now, because when you spread yourself too thin, you're always running from one thing to another. As far as kind of shifting topics, just to touch briefly, I know a month or two ago, things in India were pretty bad with COVID. Things starting to improve there.
Oh yeah, so they have improved quite a bit. I think now it's almost lockdown is over everywhere, practically everywhere. There's just a few cities.
Okay.
Things are back to normal.
Okay, good.
Now, why I'm laughing is because if you had asked me this question 3-4 months back, before the second wave came, everybody thought COVID is over.
Okay. Oh, okay.
So, all caution was thrown to the winds.
Right.
So I do hope that, people remain cautious. And yes, of course, we all need to do our daily work. The economy has to keep rolling along. I think the rate of vaccinations is increasing quite a bit. So we're doing a few millions a day.
Okay.
But there's still a huge population. So a lot of vaccination. A lot of people need to be vaccinated, of course.
Okay. Yeah, that's one of my concerns here. I finally, over the weekend, met up with friends. It was my first time out in 15 months or so with anybody other than, my family that, have all lived under, the one roof. And, that's my fear that, things are starting to open up, and, what if it happens again? My daughter's getting ready to head back to her job in New York City. She's been working her job from New York City, from a room here in our house.
Right.
And did you guys handle it that way? This is something that you can work on from a home office, where each of your developers and staff lives. Is that pretty much how you're doing it during COVID?
Yes. So early in 2020, before COVID hit, David, if you had asked me this question, I would have said over my dead body. Work from home means no work, so this is like a holiday. So never come to the office. Now, the experience has been amazing. Would you believe it? Our productivity has gone up 40-50%.
Wow.
And the reason is these are all young people. They have all gone home. Okay. They're all with their parents, with their family, getting, free meals and, good meals. We give them complete flexibility. Sleep whenever you want, do whatever. Right.
Right.
There are only just couple of meetings which they, on which also are kept at convenient times, 11 o'clock and 5:30, and everybody has that flexibility. You want to sleep off for a couple of hours in the afternoon, do that, just inform everybody. So people are working till typically, I mean, last night, we took out a release at 3 o'clock in the night.
Wow.
And earlier when they were coming to the office, it's like 9 to 6, and then 2 hours coming in, and then going back home, and then because you're staying on your own, then figuring out your dinner,
Right.
and then eating a lot of junk. So I think I think it's working for everybody. So
Right.
we have no plans to come back to an office, and of course, as a company, we save a lot of money on rentals, etc.
Right.
So it's a sort of win-win for us for sure.
I really believe that, a lot of companies are going to see that. I've seen it, like I said, with my daughter. She didn't have that commute into work, which is for her. She lived in the financial district in Manhattan and was commuting to Midtown. So it was roughly between walking in the subway a half an hour, and then she's got to go figure lunch out. Meanwhile, now that she's here, her commute was from one room to another room in the house, and then lunch was down the stairs and around the corner,
Yeah.
in our kitchen. And so she picked up that kind of time there. And, and the fact that there wasn't a lot going on around here, she was also, working until, 7, 8 o'clock at night. And when things were busy, even longer. And I just don't know, a lot of businesses, unless they have clients coming in or they've got to ship stuff out. And my daughter's in PR, so they do have stuff to ship out, to editors and whatnot. But it's just, I don't know why anybody would have a huge office now, because again, you have a computer, you can do your work from anywhere. And like you were saying, people are more productive because they're more comfortable.
Absolutely. And even for your daughter, I mean, I'm sure New York must be awfully expensive.
Oh, absolutely.
Right. And the spaces must be very small and so on, like any large city. I mean, the quality of life must be much, much better.
Right.
And there's a lot more balance because you can, adjust your life accordingly.
Right.
You can work at certain hours, and this is what our young people do in our company. I mean,
Right.
evening, some of them are out with their girlfriends, which is fine because then they will come and work in the night.
Right.
Earlier, rigid hours wouldn't allow that kind of flexibility to anybody.
Right. I'd like to tell you that my daughter wasn't paying rent the whole time that she's been down here, but then that would be a lie. And that's the frustrating thing, because she keeps saying, "Man, what if I wasn't on that lease and I'd be saving that, all that money each month." And boy, she'd have a lot more money, but it is what it is. And she is looking forward to getting back there and getting back with her friends and whatnot. And as I'm sure a lot of folks are, but again, you never know, is the other shoe going to drop and another wave come and all that. But it's we're at least in our house, everybody's vaccinated, and so that part is good. So is there any place that folks should look for you? Social media, where can people go to find you?
Okay, so I am all over, but I would say the most convenient way to reach out to me is on my email, which is Pramit at louisvoice.com.
Okay.
And by the way, it's in the description of Play Store as well.
Okay.
And if so, one just needs to head over to Play Store, look for Louie Voice Control. Louie is spelled out as Louie. Or one can just put in voice control. So once you download it, there is an auto email also that comes from me, just providing all the critical resources, videos, etc., and how to reach out to me and so on. So I would say email, and I'm very handy on email. So one would get pretty fast responses from us.
Okay, and I'll put links to both in the show notes so people can connect there. And but I do appreciate your time tonight, this morning, depending on where we are. Actually, it's this morning for both of us. So I do appreciate your time, Pramit, and it was very nice talking with you. And I wish you the best with Louie Voice Control. And I hope to have you again on once things progress a little bit further.
Yes, and once we are out with iPhone, I think we're going to come back again.
Okay, that sounds good. Thanks again for coming on tonight.
Thank you so much, David, for inviting me.
Thanks again to Pramit for coming on. I really do appreciate his time. And I have to tell you, he is the furthest away that I've ever had on the podcast. He's based in India. And when we set up a time, it's easiest for me once everybody goes to sleep, once the house is quiet and nobody's using bandwidth. So it actually worked out great. I talked to him at midnight Eastern here in the U.S., which worked out well for him. It was 9:30 a.m. over there in India, and it was just a great time. I had taken the dog out. I thought he was going to make me a little late for the interview, but he was even in bed by the time I had the interview. I rushed him back in and got him in settled, and I was ready to go with the interview. And again, Pramit, I really did enjoy speaking with you, and I look forward to having you on once the iOS app is out and ready to go. And so if you have an Android phone, I'd love to hear your feedback. Go to the Google Play Store and go grab Louie Voice Control and play around with it and let me know what you think. I'd love to hear your feedback on it. You can reach out to me at 646-926-6350. That is a voice mail that, if you give your permission, I can use it on an upcoming episode. And I'd really appreciate your feedback on Louie Voice Control because I don't have an Android phone, and I'd love to hear how it works and how easy it is to use. I'd love to hear all about it. So again, 646-926-6350. You have up to 3 minutes. Remember to give me permission so I could use your voice on an upcoming episode. You could also reach out, ican'tseeyou@gmail.com. Remember, I can't see you sounds like a whole sentence, but is only 7 characters long. ICANTCU podcast@gmail.com. And it's funny, I noticed that I go back and forth when I say it's only 7 characters or 7 letters. Either way, it's right, but it's funny that I say that. So again, I can't see you. ICANTCU. That's also where you can find the show notes at ican'tseeyou.com, and this episode is 129. So ican'tseeyou.com/129. Don't forget, when you're shopping at Amazon, I really would appreciate you using my affiliate link, ican'tseeyou.com/Amazon. And that is going to do it for me today. Getting excited to go out for our anniversary dinner. We always get together with a neighbor whose anniversary is the day before ours, and we've been celebrating for probably at least 2 decades together. So looking forward to that. We obviously did not celebrate last year together. So again, I appreciate you listening. This has been episode 129 of the I Can't See You podcast. My name is David. I hope you're continuing to stay safe and you're well, and I will talk to you next week.
Thank you for listening to the I Can't See You podcast with David. Please rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast wherever you listen. And don't forget to share the podcast with your friends.